It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 31, guys, we are getting so close to 100 subscribers. Make a push, people. Hit that share button and get us out into the Detroit Pistons community because we love bringing you guys all the Detroit Pistons news. So continue to smash that subscribe button and also hit the like button too so that we get pushed into the YouTube algorithm. We appreciate you guys for coming back each and every week. Also, you might be wondering, I mean, we've been here for a couple episodes now, but we have partnered up with Campfire Coworks. So make sure to go follow them on every social media platform because Campfire Coworks is an office sharing space here in downtown Marquette, Michigan. So find a way if there is a possibility for you to partner up with Campfire Coworks, whether you are looking to start a business, start a podcast, or just need help getting involved with the Michigan business community. Campfire Coworks can help you out. Now, this week, episode number 31, we are going to be talking about the Detroit Pistons' second round pick, the 31st pick in this year's draft, to be exact. And we're going to talk about the guys that have actually worked out with the Detroit Pistons. Troy Weaver, Dwayne Casey have actually rubbed shoulders with these guys in the Detroit Pistons Henry Ford Health System or gym, and they have gotten a close look at the length, the skill sets, and guys like Emoni Bates, Antoine Davis, Dexter Dennis, Jordan Walsh are going to be some of the guys that we are actually going to highlight in this week's episode. So stay tuned so you can get the details on what we think about Emoni Bates and what his statistics look like. But before we get into it, some big news has broke since we have got to talk to you guys. And Monty Williams is the new Detroit Pistons head coach. He's also recruited Steven Silas, past Houston Rockets head coach, and now more talk of Jarrett Jack. Ryan, what is your reaction to this? Because I know you're a Monty Williams guy, and I can't remember the specific number it is over 6 years that he's getting. Hopefully you can help me with that. But I know you love Monty, man.
Yep, it's a 6-year, $78.5 million deal.
Woo!
It could reach up to a 10-year deal worth $100 million with incentives.
Dude.
Which is a fat contract.
Yep.
But he deserves it. And now I will say, he does deserve it, but he shouldn't be getting paid more than Steve Kerr or Brad Popovich. But he is a great coach. Nonetheless, I'm ecstatic for this hire. Mm-hmm. This is what needs to happen to make a push towards the playoffs. We always have had key coaches come in, and that's what's transcended us to the next level. You look at Chuck Daly, rest in peace. You look at Larry Brown.
Yep.
Like, when you have those two great coaches come in, what happens? We win. Yeah. So when you have a Monty Williams type coach come in who has success, who's been with Phoenix and has developed them into who they are now, and they had enough ability to make a trade for like a Kevin Durant just based off of they developed Cam Johnson, they developed Mikal Bridges into the pieces that they were, and they're still great players today, and they're still two of the best younger players in the game right now, and that's all because of Monty. So Monty coming in, developing our young core, it's going to be something special.
Yeah, and if you kind of follow the timeline of when Monty got to the Phoenix Suns, yes, Devin Booker had a couple more years under his belt than Cade Cunningham does, but he's coming into a very similar situation. You know that you have some pieces that should fill in the puzzle and that should work out, but just need a little bit more guidance than the previous coach gave. And Monty Williams was able to offer that for the Phoenix Suns. So I'm super excited to see what our young core does with having a coach like Monty Williams, because we haven't got many reactions from any of the players. If there's any Detroit Pistons players that want to talk about Monty Williams and their reaction, come on the pod, okay? We'd be happy to have you. But guys like Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey have talked about it, but we haven't got any response from Cade yet. I would love to know what he thinks of the new regime of Steven Silas, Monty Williams, and then hopefully Jarrett Jack. Very exciting things around the Detroit Pistons organization right now. Let's talk about, to start talking about the 31st pick, guys that we can kind of see get taken there. I want to first cover Emoni Bates, Michigan native from Ypsilanti, 6'10", 170 pounds, a little on the light side. Played his last season with the Eastern Michigan Eagles. Eastern, not really known for their basketball program, but has had highlight guys like Noah Farrakhan and some guys that are known for being very high school prospects and then kind of failing at the upper hand of D1 and then kind of coming to Eastern and kind of trying to develop that game. This year, he averaged 33 minutes, 40% from the field, 78.2% from the free throw line, nearly 6 rebounds, half a block a game, almost a steal a game, and 19.2 points per game. What I personally like about Emoni is we talk about at the small forward position, that's really what needs to be addressed with the Pistons. We're assuming that a small forward will get picked with the 5th pick in this year's draft. But a guy like Emoni, 6'10", really a power forward, can play center here or there. He's just, really undersized weight-wise. I think the Pistons need a guy, he's always compared to Kevin Durant, right? I think the Pistons need a guy that's a go-to scorer. Doesn't necessarily need to be the smartest guy on the court. Doesn't necessarily have to have the highest IQ. We just need guys that can go and get us buckets. Guys like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, they'll worry about the IQ side of the game. Every team needs that go-to scorer, and I think Emoni Bates has potential to be that. What are some of your first thoughts on Emoni Bates from Ypsilanti?
So I think he is like Kevin Durant, except he's a more athletic Kevin Durant.
Okay.
So when you watch the highlights and the tape on him, he plays like a guard.
Right.
He has that guard speed.
Yep.
But he's the size of a stretch 4 essentially. Now I will say the weight does bug me a little bit because he is a freak of an athlete. Yeah.
Yep.
He's really long, has a wingspan of 6'9", pretty much the same size as what he is, just standing upright at 6'10". He has that length, but the weight isn't there, and we've seen guys like, now this is, I'm not comparing them based off of who they are as a player, I'm just comparing them in the size department. When you look at like a Chet Holmgren as an example, even though he didn't step foot in the NBA this year, gets injured guarding LeBron in the summer.
Right.
Like, he didn't do much to get injured, and then boom, he goes down. And then you look at even Victor Wembanyama, even though he is a completely different player and plays a completely different position, he still is undersized in that weight department, and that's a concern for a lot of teams. And even like Kevin Durant, as he's progressed and gotten older, and not only has gotten older, but even in the beginning of his career, he's had minor setbacks with injuries. And so it's kind of like concerning for me when you have a kid that has star written all over him.
Yep.
But he's in that undersized department and weight. That really affects the player and what he's able to do.
Right.
And so that's my only concern with him. So if he is there when we're picking in the second round, take him.
Okay.
Because he's that good.
Mm-hmm.
But there is still a minor setback in my opinion with the weight department. But otherwise, he is a more athletic Kevin Durant.
With the weight issue, for me with Emoni, is when Cade was getting drafted, there were similar worries, right? He's a little on the light side, but then we see Cade deal with an injury and really put on some muscle and really thicken up. So what I like about picking Emoni with the 31st pick is that the Pistons organization has proven over these last couple of years that if a guy is a little bit on the thinner side, that they can address that easily. I think we should go after a guy with the skill and then address those weight issues later on. I think he'll have time to not have to be super good when he gets into the NBA. I think he'll have time to sit the bench, put some weight on, eat a bunch of chicken, eat a bunch of rice, get that diet right. And then once he addresses that, I think this kid can flourish in the NBA. I think he can be legit.
No, I think he can for sure. And I will say, Oh man, where was I just going with that?
You're good. You want me to keep talking?
Yep.
Okay,
Let's
I can
go.
keep talking.
Let's go.
So I do like Emoni. Ever since I watched him in high school, he's just got that it factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen guys come to the NBA, and guys that we saw in high school have that it factor, and we've seen them not work out in the NBA. The list goes on. And right now, the Detroit Pistons as a whole have a lot of those guys that were high prospects in high school, top 10, Gatorade Player of the Year. The list goes on. James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, R.J. Hampton, Cade Cunningham. We have a lot of guys on this roster. That's my only issue about getting Emoni. Right now, behind the scenes, there's a lot of big personalities on the Detroit Pistons roster. A lot of guys that think they're the top dog. I think if you add too many of those guys to a roster, it can be detrimental in the practice facility, on the airplane. So that's my only thing that's in question with Emoni, is that we really don't know his personality. We have a lot of guys, and yes, it's on every NBA team. There's a lot of big personalities. But when at a young age, you have so many eyes on you, you're getting so many followers, you're getting so many views on YouTube for your highlights, I think it does something to your ego. And I'm worried about if you add another guy like that, like Emoni, to this Pistons roster, it might be dangerous to the morale of the team.
I will say on top of that, I do remember what I was going to say, but this isn't it.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say I don't think his personality is going to be an issue.
Right.
And that's just because, look at him coming out of high school. He was the number 1 recruit in his class.
Yeah.
And goes to Memphis, has issues there with health and whatnot and a lot of different things. And then because of that, he really got put out of the spotlight. So nobody was really talking about him too much.
Right.
And then he goes to Eastern, and even then, nobody's really talking about him too much because it's not like he's at a blue blood or anything. So I think taking a step out of that spotlight has allowed him to grow as a person to the point where he's just hoping to get an opportunity right now.
Right.
I've seen the interviews. He just wants an opportunity. Just give me a shot, and I'm going to do my thing. That's essentially what he's been saying
And I
all
love
along. And so him walking into our team, I don't think you're going to have the personality issues, because I think he's going to be like, being a second-round pick, I have to work for what I want now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be handed to him on a silver platter or anything.
Yep.
So I will say the personality thing, I think there's not going to be any issues there. I will say, this is what I was going to say earlier. I will say, if we draft him, Isaiah Livers is gone.
Okay.
And a bunch of our guys on our bench are gone.
Right.
Because Emoni is better than them and can instantly outperform them.
Yeah, I mean, even Emoni not having much help at Eastern. I mean, there's not many guys on that roster where you're like, oh, they're legit. So this was a team that Emoni really was the guy.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him put up 43 points against Toledo, 24 against Ball, 35 against Ball. So it's like he's really putting up these stats with not much help.
Yep.
And we saw guys like Isaiah Livers at Michigan, not many years ago, have a lot of help when he was on that team, and a lot of really key players around him. And, there's so many rumors of Hamidou Diallo not re-upping with the Detroit Pistons. Right now, we're getting closer to the NBA season every day. There still hasn't been any talk about him, so there's a good chance he won't be on this roster. Bojan Bogdanovic is in question whether he's going to be traded or not. So there's a lot of guys that, him and Hamidou aren't the same position, but those minutes got to go to somebody if Hamidou doesn't re-up. And then if Isaiah Livers continues not to prove that, he's really in question, if he's not going to be taking the minutes, it's the perfect opportunity for a guy like Emoni that the Pistons need key role players. They need help off the bench, and they need guys that can step up and be starters when needed. And I think Emoni is one of those guys that can do it.
Yeah, I really think obviously Emoni's riding the bench at first.
Yeah.
He's going to get minutes, of course, but it's not like he's going to start. There's no way you're getting picked at 31st and you're starting instantly. There's no way.
Yeah.
Unless something happened to have you fall that far, but obviously if you fell that far, there's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what we saw in the combine with the games and the minutes that he had there, what he was able to do and showcase was very impressive. I think you could have Hami and Emoni Bates working together in the second unit. I think that is possible.
I think it could work, yeah.
Because they are two totally different players. Because Hami is more of a slasher and has more of a mid-range game and can just play solid lock-up defense, where Emoni is more flashy in the sense that he doesn't necessarily have to have the ball in his hands every single second. He's still going to work out, and it's just going to work. So I think Emoni and a Hami second unit could work. But Isaiah Livers is the only one. I think he's the odd man out if we take Emoni, because there's a reason why Emoni was the number one recruit in his class coming out of high school. There's a reason. He's legit. And so just the fact that Isaiah has struggled so much with staying healthy, and he had a guy in Emoni who really hasn't had too many injury issues so far. And obviously Emoni can outplay Isaiah Livers, no question. The only difference is I think Isaiah could back him down in the paint in a one-on-one and easy score just because of the weight. But I think Emoni has him beat. In 30 games, Emoni had 1,014 minutes, 173 rebounds, 42 assists, 16 blocks, 76 turnovers, 68 fouls, and 577 points.
I love that 577 points.
It shows you he can score, and that's pretty much about it. But he can score, and that's what's key. Because you want to have one of those guys that is just an outlet shooter, and you're just popping that.
So when talking about the probability of Emoni Bates getting taken by the Detroit Pistons with the 31st pick, what percentage are you giving it? Is it 80%? Is it 50%? What are you thinking?
To me, it's based off of the late end of the first round, and honestly the late lottery of the first round. Because I think Emoni, based off what he did in the combine, I think he could be a late lottery first round.
Okay.
Because he's proven like, hey, I'm still that good.
So a possible shake-up in the NBA of, and Emoni getting picked a little bit sooner than expected. I wouldn't be shocked either. I think that NBA teams are drooling over that 6'10" height. I think people love the speed, the shooting ability compared, and then alongside with that 6'10" length, dude. Come on, I mean.
I think he's a steal wherever you take him, between late lottery and early second round pick, or even late second round pick. I think he's a steal.
Yeah, and for me, the Pistons, I think, could use a little bit of that size. Isaiah Livers is a little bit on the short end, in my opinion, for a small forward. We see him have some shooting guard play, but really, we need that true small forward, and I think 6'10" really's got to cut it at the small forward position in today's NBA. So for me, if, like you were saying, if Emoni doesn't get picked higher than expected, I think we should 1,000% take him. 1,000% probability if he's available. Another guy that I would not be shocked if the Detroit Pistons take him a little bit sooner than expected is a guy by the name that you guys are very familiar with, Antoine Davis from the Detroit Mercy Titans. He is a 6'1" senior, 165 pounds. That's something for sure we're going to have to address, is that undersized. He's from Birmingham, Alabama. He averaged 28.2 points a game this season, 3 rebounds, 3.6 assists, and then to accompany that nearly 30 points a game, 41% from the field. This is a guy that knows how to get buckets, and the Pistons needing help in that side of the game. The defense struggles, but also you have to be able to keep up with other teams offensively, and a guy like Antoine Davis coming off the bench. And if we do lose, guys like Hamidou Diallo, Isaiah Livers, we're going to need help in the offensive department. For me, I don't see him getting taken above Emoni, but say there's an opportunity where Emoni goes high lottery, or maybe in the 20-ish mark, maybe a guy like Antoine Davis isn't totally out of the realm of possibility.
I will say, scoring-wise and offensively, this dude is gifted. I wouldn't mind that in our offense, but I think we have numerous guards on our roster that could easily beat him out right now. And the obvious one would be Alec Burks. I think Alec Burks could easily beat out Antoine Davis, not just because of the vet experience compared to a rookie, just in the sense of, look at what Alec Burks can do. He can play. He had a 50-point game with the Knicks last year. He can play. He's fine. So I think with this pick in the second round, I wouldn't mind them taking him, But at the same time, I'd rather have Emoni Bates being taken there
Mm-hmm.
or a couple other guys taken ahead. I love him. He's one of my favorite college basketball players this year. But I just think the undersize and the logjam we have at guard already, it just wouldn't make sense to draft him.
So say the Pistons this offseason, we lose Hami, Corey Joseph gets cut or something happens with Corey Joseph, so that spot's available. Do you see them where the Pistons should be a little bit more aggressive with getting a guy like him? Or do you think that you give more opportunity to Killian Hayes because Jared Rhoden got a lot of minutes, similar somewhat in size as Antoine. What do you see with that, a situation like that?
With that situation, I'm still not drafting him.
Okay.
I would assess that in free agency because you could easily bring in a guy.
We got money too.
Yep, we have money. We could easily bring in a free agent that could fill that void and give an opportunity to still a younger guy with a high upside, and you won't have to waste a draft pick on it because you know what you're getting and what you could possibly get. I think you go that route rather than just drafting Antoine Davis with that second round pick, especially if Emoni is available. You're not going to do that. So, and not that I don't love him, because I do. Obviously, he's a legit scorer, but outside of scoring, we never really saw too much rebounding, assists, steals, blocks. We never really saw too many of that. We just saw scoring, and that is impressive. You can be a great scorer, but you also have to be an all-around kind of player to play in the NBA.
I like Antoine Davis. I think he's a legit scorer. I like the scoring ability. I think the Pistons could use it, of course, but the 6'1" height, 165 pounds. 165 pounds is just, it's just not going to cut it. You have to be 6'10" and 170 if you're going to make it that weight. Like you have to have the height if the weight's not going to be there. And for Antoine, neither of them are really there. He reminds me a lot of a CJ Edwards. When he was coming into the NBA, he was severely undersized, but his scoring was there. The dude could get buckets. He got drafted by the Boston Celtics, made a little bit of waves here and there, but now he's just hovering around in the G League. So for me, an Antoine Davis, I think if he's 6'7", take him and run away with him.
Yep.
But being 6'1", I just don't think it's going to cut it. The probability of him getting picked with the 31st pick, I'm not going to say it's 0, but as far as the Pistons really swiping him up, I think it's probably more like 30% chance if Emoni Bates isn't available. I think we're pretty high on it.
I wouldn't even say 30. I'd say like 15%.
Really?
Yeah. But that's just because there's a couple guys on my list that I'm higher on, just in their ability alone and their size and whatnot and what they can do. But
I want to talk about another guy. One of our last guys that we're going to talk about that has worked out with the Detroit Pistons, a guy by the name Jordan Walsh. He is a freshman this year from DeSoto, Texas, played at Arkansas with the Razorbacks. I like the height, 6'7", 205 pounds. The statistics, though, is where it's kind of fallen short for me. Averaged 7 points this season, nearly 4 rebounds, nearly an assist, 43% from the field. But the thing with this guy, uber athletic. This dude's got ups, great around the rim. The three-point shooting isn't necessarily there. This season, he shot 27% from the three-point line and played 36 games. So proved he can stay healthy, but the shot ain't there. Why do you think the Pistons had him work out for him? Just to kind of see where the shot was at?
no, defense.
Okay.
If you watch the tape, he's a lockdown defender.
Right.
One of the best defenders in college basketball this season alone. Even though, obviously, the blocks and the steals weren't there. I mean, the steals were there. He had 40 steals this season. But he's strictly a lockdown defender with uber athleticism. That's what he is. You can develop shots with guys. That's still possible. But I don't know if you can develop a 27.8% from the three-point line shot there. But I hope you could. But the stats-wise, it's too low for taking a guy there. Because 31 is still very early.
Yeah.
I would take Jordan Walsh with a late second round pick.
Right, like maybe
Or
45.
Maybe, or maybe signing him undrafted.
Right.
To like a 2-way contract, see what happens.
Yeah.
But I'm not wasting my 31st pick on him.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe, take a gamble on him for our summer league team, maybe get a look at it, see what he does, and if he makes a couple little waves, maybe sign him to a 2-way. But yeah, it's hard to say. It's a big gamble, and I just don't think that the Pistons are in a spot right now to be gambling with this 31st pick. I honestly think, even if Emoni is available, if for some reason there's somebody we're forgetting about, that whoever's best available, I think you take him because, with size, of course. I don't think we're taking a point guard, of course, but you can't gamble with this pick.
No.
Troy Weaver has to make sure that this guy can make an impact right away, not where he's starting, but where he is getting solid 18 to 24 minutes a game, and that can give us a boost off the bench. And I just don't think Jordan Walsh is that for us. We have some solid defenders right now that will pull it together, and our defense will hopefully kind of shift into a better mold this season.
I will say I have 2 guys that we haven't covered really, that I would say could be the 31st pick.
Okay.
And I personally think if Emoni isn't there, you take one of these guys, because I think with the 31st pick, we go for a guy that can instantly come in and play off the bench, just be a good key role player. And so you have, in my opinion, 2 options, and Seth Lundy from Penn State and Drew Peterson from USC.
Drew Peterson. All right, let's talk about it. Which one do you prefer out of those 2?
Either or, but to me personally, I'd probably go Seth Lundy.
Okay. What's his height looking
He is
like?
6'6", 219.
Okay.
So he is there in the weight department. His size, he's a little small, but he's not afraid to take the shot. When you watch the tape, from my analysis of him, he's not afraid to take the shot. He's an outlet shooter. He's a cutter and a glue guy.
Right.
And he can do just about anything you want him to do. In this season, in 36 games, he averaged 32 minutes, shot 45% from the field, 40% from 3, and 80% from the free throw line, along with an average of 14 points a game, 6.5 rebounds and assists. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And the Big Ten is not bad in basketball.
No.
So
tough.
Seth Lundy playing that great in 36 games for a lower end middle class Penn State this season, that's really good. His totals for those 36 games, played over 1,141 minutes, had 225 rebounds, 31 assists, 27 steals, and 510 points.
Right.
Like, he can ball out. And just in the combine, watching those games and everything, he had a stretch there where he had like 19 points in a row.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, where's that coming
Dude
from?
can get buckets.
And it's not like he's just sitting there in the corner waiting for something to happen. He's cutting all over the place, looking for the open shot and just taking it right away.
Right.
Even with the closeout defender that's much bigger than him rushing out at him, he's still taking that shot and hitting it. And so, like, the fact that the numbers are there, he's not afraid to take that shot. We need a shooter. That's what we need, because if we're moving on from Bojan, we're going to need somebody that can come in and shoot. And Isaiah Livers is clearly not that.
Right.
And Alec Burks gets his minutes in here and there, but he's not like the key guy off the bench. And so you're going to need to have multiple shooters. You can't just have 2 and that's it. So I think having him come in and just being a guy that is kind of like a Duncan Robinson. When you need a guy to take that shot, he just comes in and does that. And so that's why I'm high on Seth Lundy. And then Drew Peterson is pretty much the same thing as Seth Lundy.
Yep.
Played at USC. He's a guard. He's a very big guard, by the way.
Yeah, 6'9".
Yep, 6'9", 185. In 33 games, he averaged 36 minutes a game, which that's pretty darn high.
Playing a lot.
Shot 44% from the field, 36% from 3, 75% from the free throw line. Averaged 14 points, 6.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. Totals wise, he had 206 rebounds, 143 assists, which is insanely high.
Right.
35 steals, 458 points. Like, he can, both of these guys, like Drew Peterson, spot up shooter, playmaker. He has a very effective fadeaway.
Okay.
So it's like just the basketball genetics and everything in the fundamental department is there.
You're right.
Like, he backs down the guy and hits a nasty fadeaway off of him every single time, and it's like, okay.
Right.
Now, the two differences between these guys and the others that we listed is I see these guys as guys that can just come in and just be effective right away.
Right.
Not even having to spend any time in the G League.
Right.
And that's what I like, because with this pick, we need to have a guy that can just come in and off the bench immediately and be effective rather than be a project.
When they're both seniors, right?
Yep.
So they've had 4 years in college basketball. Penn State, USC, not crazy good, basketball programs. USC better than Penn State. But so they've had some solid runs in March Madness. They've, kind of gathered that veteran presence on their respective teams. And what I like about these guys, too, is that they're efficient.
Yeah.
And we saw Seth Lundy, Purdue was tough this season. We saw Seth Lundy give 19 points and 8 rebounds on 45% or 53% shooting against Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he's putting up, these kind of numbers, very solid numbers against these highly touted college basketball teams is what I like. So I think I probably, I like Peterson's size. I like the 6'9", but Seth Lundy just kind of just is a little bit more persuading to me in my opinion. But I love that they're both seniors. So it's, and we were talking about before, we don't want to gamble on this 31st pick. We want a good, solid guy that's going to come in and that's not going to flop and not have a floppy career. And I think both of these guys are ready for the NBA. And like you were saying, they're ready to take this next step and ready to produce, not just go to the G League and take some time to develop. So I think these guys aren't a gamble. I think either of them, I don't think it's a bad decision either way. I think just, watching basketball, everybody has those guys that kind of gather your attention. Seth Lundy, for me, is one of those guys that just kind of passes that I factor a little bit more. But I wouldn't be upset if we took Peterson.
No. And you break down who we've brought in, and to me, my number one is Seth Lundy outside of Emoni Bates.
Yeah.
My 2 would be Drew Peterson. My 3, I would actually have Jordan Walsh over Jalen Slauson, just because Walsh has that lockdown ability, whereas Slauson, I really see him as just a high-end role player that can be effective. So he could be one of those guys where we do draft him, and I'm fine with that, because he's just one of those guys that can do just about anything you want him to. But I don't think he will be there when we take him, because he's gotten worked out by like 6 other NBA teams, and so everybody's clearly interested in him.
Yeah.
And everybody's recognizing that he can be a steal in this upcoming draft. But yeah, Emoni Bates, if he is available at 31, we take him. Otherwise, Seth Lundy for me.
So we have talked about each and every player, not each and every player, we've talked about the most intriguing players that have worked out with the Detroit Pistons. Make sure to comment below who you prefer, whether it's Drew Peterson, Seth Lundy, Emoni Bates, or even if it's Antoine Davis. Let us know in the comments who you prefer and what maybe the probability of the Detroit Pistons taking them is. I have a follower question.
Okay.
And this question is from X Revved 112 on Instagram. And Alex, I'm going to prepare you if you're watching this. Ryan is about to eat this question alive. I can just tell. This is a kind of question where Ryan is just going to hop all over it, which I love. I love it. We got to inform the people. That's what we're doing with Alex, and that's what we're doing with our followers. So thank you, Alex, for leaving a comment. Let's get into what he has to say. He says, can I offer up a crazy idea? If Scoot falls, would Troy Weaver offer up? This is where Ryan's going to go downhill. If Scoot falls, would Troy Weaver offer up Jaden Ivey and the number 5 for the number 3, i.e. Scoot? Let's assume Portland then flips those 2 assets for a veteran, win now players. Who says no? ? Side note, he just wants to point out that he loves Jaden Ivey, but Scoot looks like a baby Westbrook and Ja. And Ivy does too, he says, but this could be a franchise-defining move for a generation with this emoji. So thank you, Alex, for leaving that comment. Ryan is thinking so hard. I can tell when he's thinking hard. You want me to give you the trade proposal again, or you got it?
I mean, you can if you want.
Okay, so this is what Alex is saying real quick. Say Scoot falls. Would Troy Weaver offer up Jaden Ivey and the number 5 pick for the number 3 pick? So saying that he doesn't go 2, pretty much, if Scoot doesn't go 2. Would you make that move? Are you giving up Jaden Ivey after his rookie season that he had with the Detroit Pistons for Scoot Henderson?
No.
Okay.
Okay. It's not like a crazy idea. I respect your idea. It's not terrible. It's not like I'm immediately just brushing it aside.
Yeah.
It's not terrible. But I will say, I think Jaden Ivey will be more complimentary to a Cade Cunningham than a Scoot Henderson, just in the ability factor.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at what Jaden Ivey did, you see, yeah, he's clearly a 2, and he can clearly play amongst anyone in the rotation, and we saw that this season. I can't say the same for Scoot. Scoot played in the G League this past year. He was phenomenal. There's a reason why he's going to be a top 3 pick. I see the traits that you're talking about. They are there, but I don't think you give up 5 in Jaden Ivey for Scoot, because I think Jaden Ivey and 5 is worth more than just taking Scoot.
Right.
I think it's more valuable to have those 2 than to have Scoot, just because you don't just draft a guy in the top 5 or take Jaden Ivey like that and then trade him a year later. Right. Unless you're the Sacramento Kings with Tyrese Halliburton, which that was a stupid move, but it also was a good move for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you roll with Jaden Ivey because he wants to be in Detroit, and he has family ties to Detroit. So yeah. I don't think you move on from him or give up on him yet, because we're more of a family-orientated franchise, and so by giving up on a kid that fast, I don't think it's going to end well, or it's going to just create a bad image for us.
Yeah, and I don't see the probability of Troy Weaver doing that. When I put myself in his shoes, I don't see it being very high. Like you said, I think Jaden's very Detroit-oriented, and I think it's really Jaden and Cade that are really the most involved with the organization. I think Jalen's there too, but I think Jalen's just he's 19 years old still. I don't think he's too professional. I think Jaden and Cade are really the guys that are trying to develop this organization, their mindset is solely focused on that. And I don't think you just kind of toss away a guy like that. And Scoot hasn't proven that he's a true 2. Yep. With guys like John Morant, Russell Westbrook, like you're saying, passed in the NBA and have proven that they're really good at the 1 spot, I think Scoot could be a 1. Yep. So I think Jaden has proved in his rookie year that he's a good 2. And we don't need a number 1 guy. We don't need a point guard. We got Cade. We got Jaden. I don't think you totally fuss with what the organization's got going on for a guy like Scoot. I think the only reason you would make a trade in that situation is if a guy like Victor Wembanyama is for some reason in play. I don't think Scoot's really worth that gamble. I don't think Troy Weaver's at the point where we're making many gambles. I think we have to get for sure safe players that we know will produce. Troy Weaver, early in his takeover of the Detroit Pistons, made those gambles with trading guys like Bruce Brown, Luke Kennard. He made those gambles already. He's done his due. I just don't see it happening. But thank you, Alex Rob 112, for commenting. We appreciate it. And if you have any more questions, Alex, send them our way. We'd be glad to talk about it in each and every episode.
Or even anyone. If anyone has questions, we'll answer them.
Absolutely. We love it personally.
Yep. And I will say Jaden Ivey is a freak of an athlete himself.
Yeah.
So there's not too much of a difference there. Jaden Ivey is just a little bit lengthier and has more of the I can be the guy if you want me to be the guy, but I'm fine chilling on the side.
Right.
And where Scoot, I feel like he would want to be the guy, but who's to say? Because I think Scoot's going to be a solid point guard in the league, or even a guard in general. I think he's solid. He's going to have a solid, long career in the NBA, but I don't think you take a gamble on the chemistry factor that we've produced this season.
I do think there's a chance that Scoot does fall to 4, though.
Oh, I think there's a chance Scoot falls to 6.
Really? So you think even if the Pistons don't trade up for Scoot, they wouldn't take him at 5?
No. If there's not a team, like Portland's been talking about trading that pick, right? So if Portland doesn't take him and somebody tries to trade up for him, that's how he gets picked. Otherwise, because the Trailblazers have brought in the Thompson brothers and others around that spot, and I think they're more high on the Thompson brothers than Scoot Henderson.
Okay.
So I think, like, let's say they take Amen Thompson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they do that. Scoot falls to 4. I see Houston maybe doing that, but they're more of wing needy than guard needy because they have Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green. Now, I will say Scoot Henderson is by far better than Jalen Green. I think
that's a hot take.
Better than both of them.
Yeah.
But I don't think Houston's just going to give up on those two guys that fast.
Right.
So Scoot then would fall. Again, we're not needing a guard. I mean, if Scoot's there, I guess we take him. But then it's like, what do we do with Killian, Jaden, and Cade all together?
Let's say we have Hami.
Yeah, it's just there's already a logjam there. I don't see us taking him there. And then he falls to 6. And who's at 6? Orlando. They need a guard. Scoot Henderson's going to Orlando.
You know, a possible, I could totally see Scoot in an Orlando jersey. Though they have a bunch of guards too, so it's like...
If they trade up for Portland's pick, they're throwing in Jalen Suggs. And Jalen Suggs is going to Portland
then that's
because
one less guard.
They value Scoot Henderson like 1,000% more than Jalen Suggs. I don't think Jalen Suggs is that good.
And with Scoot, say he does fall to 5, we have seen so many drafts in past years where Luka Doncic gets drafted by the New York Knicks, and then Trae Young by the Dallas Mavericks, and then they swap. So it's like, who knows? Maybe the Pistons do take Scoot at 5, but he's not going to ever play in a Pistons jersey. He'll get flipped, or who knows? Who knows? This draft, like, I haven't followed the NBA Pistons this close, like, as a commentator, but I just feel like this draft, there is just so much that could happen. Yeah. I am so looking forward to this year's draft because, one, there's going to be so many questions answered that night, but then also I think a bunch of drama could go down with trades, and knowing Troy Weaver's past, you just never know how to predict this guy. It's so hard to know what this guy's going to do. So there's so much that could happen, and I am so excited to see what goes down on draft night. Also, I'm hoping that me and Ryan are going to plan a watch party for the NBA draft. So be on the lookout for that. Maybe you can watch the NBA draft with us. Who knows? Anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
One guy, Bilal Coulibaly. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right.
Okay.
But he played with Wembanyama this past season. He is supposed to be the French Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the
Seems
tape
like
on him.
What's his size?
I believe he's like 6'6", so he's smaller, but he has the ability that Giannis can do, and Giannis still grew a lot when he came to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see it.
Okay.
And if you take away Bilal with, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing your name right, but if you take him away with just Wemby on that team, they're not as good, and it's clear and evident.
Okay.
So I look out for him potentially getting drafted by the Pistons, and I love it.
At 31.
But I would still rather have Emoni Bates or any of these guys because they're less of a project than he is.
Okay. I'm actually kind of shocked you're so high in Emoni. I was kind of interested to see what you were going to say. For people that are watching and watch every week, we do not talk at all about our notes. Like, we have no idea what each other's takes are going to be. And I was, like, thinking about Emoni. I'm like, I wonder what Ryan's going to say. Like, playing at Eastern, I was just kind of interested. So it's cool to know that you are so high in Emoni. A Michigan native, that's pretty fun. So, and we've seen the Pistons take Michigan native before with Isaiah Livers. So,
plus, if I hated on Emoni, everybody would be just at me. So
the NBA the fan base and the Pistons fan base, they're pretty high in Emoni, it seems, on Instagram. So we thank you guys for tuning in. We're happy to talk about the Pistons' 31st pick and what players are the most probable at getting picked at that spot, and we will not know until draft day. So thank you guys for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe. Also, I want to shout out Grind Clothing Co. We have hats that look very similar to this, and we also have sweatshirts, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have some summer gear coming out fairly soon. So go check out Grind Clothing Co. in the link in the description and the link in our YouTube bio, and go show them some love on Instagram. And they have new merch drops all the time, so go check them out because they have stuff for everybody's style, and I know for sure they'll have something that catches your eye on their website. So make sure to go check them out. Thank you guys for viewing, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.